535, Jeff Katz, News Radio, WRVA. Hey, gang, it is a Thursday afternoon. Most of us, we think about success. It's all about a bigger house, isn't it? Well, I came across a great story. I think it's a great story from down in Chesterfield. A couple, Michael Brown and his bride in Chesterfield said, we kind of want to downsize. And they got themselves a tiny house. This is a thing now, tiny houses. They're a brand new thing. And I think they're usually like the size of an efficiency apartment, maybe a one-bed studio apartment, where it's about 300-400 square feet. So they got one of these. They paid about $25,000 for it. The problem is this. It has wheels on it. And Chesterfield County says, yeah, not so much. We don't think it's a real house. We're not going to let you set it up. And so there's a whole big kerfuffle about it. Now, I mentioned to you that tiny houses are actually a thing. And as with anything that is a thing, there's now an association, a group of advocates. We've got it, American Tiny House Association. The gentleman from Chesterfield, in fact, Thom Stanton, is with us. He's part of that group. He's the leader of that group in Chesterfield. And, Tom, I just got to ask, have you got a tiny house?
I do not yet, but we definitely have interest in tiny houses. I designed them, and I'm also interested in moving into one.
Okay, so tell me exactly what defines a tiny house.
Well, tiny houses are predominantly smaller, like you said earlier, efficiency apartment size, about 400 square foot or less. In many cases, they are put on wheels, but they don't exclusively sit on wheels. In some cases, they're built on foundations, and they go through the legal permitting process through zoning and permitting and everything else that goes with the inspections to secure a certificate of occupancy. In other cases, people put them on wheels, and like you said, they are then constituted as a home-built recreational vehicle.
Okay, so this family down in Chesterfield, they have their little tiny house on wheels. It's a rec vehicle. Do you have a problem then with Chesterfield coming in and saying, hey, you're probably very nice people, but this just doesn't fly as a house?
Well, I think the challenge is, like you said, there's the economic side of it, which definitely is a motivator for a lot of people. I run a meetup group in the area, so we've got almost 300 people, and I'm seeing what they say.
No, wait a minute,
Tom. Motivations.
How can you get 300 people into a tiny house?
No, you don't. You just do it very carefully. You stack them up like cordwood.
I was going to say, like, one at a time. All right, come in. It's your time to be part of the meeting. Okay.
If Japanese-style subway works, we can do that in a tiny house.
Oh, my gosh. Okay. All right.
We definitely have an economic side of this. There are a lot of people who, and the millennials who are a predominant, group of people, their motivations are oftentimes ones of not wanting to incur more debt. They've got college debt. They don't want the same mortgage hanging over them.
Yeah.
Parents, they're losing their jobs. What do they want to do? They want that security in a place of home without feeling like it's bound to the location of their current, career.
Well, are they facing opposition in other places, or is Chesterfield unique in saying we just don't know what to do with these things?
Well, we are at that point in the road where tiny houses are just too cute to ignore, and we're at the point where there are some municipalities that are calling the question of what are they, what should we do about it? And Chesterfield is one of those. They seem very amenable to the concept of a tiny house community. And then there are other areas in which it's more heavily restricted. In other places, it seems very open, and that's what the American Tiny House Association is doing, is trying to find out what's the overall temperature, where people warm to the idea, where they cold to it.
Interesting. All right. And your desire, you said, is also to live in one of these tiny little houses.
Yeah, I would love to live in a tiny house as well as one in the community, and having the on-wheels component allows you to be able to move elsewhere. As our kids are both nearing adult age or at that point, we'd like the flexibility to live elsewhere if we want to, try out other places.
Interesting. All right, so why not just get an RV? It's the same thing, right?
Yes and no. RVs have a good place in the world. They're generally built by standards that are going to be more for the part-time living, which is why a lot of times they have that restriction for living. The walls are very thin. Mm-hmm. People can freeze to death in one, regardless of how high they crank up their heaters and try to keep them warm. The tiny houses are built more along the same sort of standards as used for building a home. For that reason, they're heavier, but the other thing is they're oftentimes much better insulated. They're built by green standards in most cases, because that's what people like. A lot of people like that green living aspect too.
Yeah. Any chance that you're going to do one in pink? Because I got this whole John Mellencamp thing that I got going on in my head that I really want to help you with. So if you can get a little pink house, man, I'm telling you, I might find myself on your side.
Well, I want to rewrite a bunch of songs and do them all as tiny house covers, and that one is definitely one of them. So we'll put that one up there as the first video that we shoot.
All right, I like the sound of that. Thank you very much, Tom. I don't know. I don't want to live in a tiny house. I do want to downsize. The bride and we just feel like we're weighed down with stuff. You have a house like that? We do. And we've moved so much over the years that we've just taken stuff we've had here and it's been boxed up, 4, 5, 6 moves ago. We haven't undone it. And there's a part of me going, hey, just get a big dumpster, pitch it all out. And then I go, nah, but you know what? There really might be something important in there. And then there's the other part of me going, but wait a minute, you haven't looked at it in 5, 6 moves. That's 15 years. Yeah, I know, but it might be really important. And I got to tell you, a lot of the stuff that I have carted around the country over the years, sometimes I've opened up a lot of times I've opened up the boxes because I want to get rid of stuff. And I look at it and it's like, oh my God, what a total, complete, self-centered, egomaniacal pinhead I was. 6 copies of every article about me. Well, in case one got damaged, you understand. Then there's a part of me going, oh, my boys will absolutely want to know this stuff. And then I'm reminded that my boys barely care that I'm sitting on the couch, Steve is in Richmond. Hey, Steve, welcome to News Radio WRVA.
How you doing, Dick? I know the guy mentioned the same thing I was going to say. What's the difference in that and a motor home? Well, why don't you just, since you can tow one of them small houses, since it's got wheels on it, get a title for it, get insurance on it, put license on it, take it wherever the hell you want and park wherever you want.
Well, that's what they're doing. The folks down in Chesterfield have it titled with the DMV, and that seems to be the issue, that you're not allowed to live in that for an extended period of time. That seems to be exactly what it is that they're saying. Hey, Michael Brown, who is the gentleman we've been talking about, says, Jeff, I love all the comments. We understand people may not want a tiny house in the backyard of a traditional house, and we hope we can have a conversation with the county as to where tiny houses can fit. Yeah, all right. He has a couple of different ideas, having a tiny house as an accessory unit, an efficiency unit behind a traditional house, tiny house on its own piece of property. Yeah, that sounds good. Parking a tiny house in a mobile home park. Believe it or not, that is prohibited, he says, and it's also prohibited to simply find some vacant land and park it there. But this Michael Brown, to me, seems to be a very reasonable guy. He says we hope we can work with the county and with the community support. We can find a place for these affordable, eco-friendly housing options in Chesterfield County. Well, okay. I'd like to see it, and we'll see exactly where that goes.